Hello, and welcome to Destination Internship. This is the podcast that's all about internships for college students seeking their next internship. Today, we're going to be talking about how to get an internship as a college freshman. Mike and I have both had a lot of success, and it's something that a lot of students struggle with, especially their freshman year, getting an internship. Mike, like I said, has had some success. So what types of tips and advice do you have, Mike?
Yeah, definitely a big topic, really exciting topic too, because first of all, you're freshmen entering college. There's so much opportunities out there, super exciting. And one of the things that we recommend is try and dive right into the internship experience. So I kind of have three main tips that I want to share about getting an internship as a freshman. First one being creating your brand. Second one being making sure you go to career fairs or any type of opportunity with companies on campus. And then three, apply to many different positions and cast your net wide. But let's just drill down into some of these a little bit more closely. First one, creating your brand. I think it's super important to be able to understand what are your strengths. There's not much experience for you to work with right now. So you have to understand intrinsically, like what characteristics do you have? What makes you unique? What makes you stand out? For me, I have a lot of energy and I'm a pretty self-starter. That was my initial first brand message when I was a freshman, and it ended up getting me an internship because I embraced the role. I embraced, the experiences that support my characteristics in my brand as well. Matt, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's definitely a great starting point in terms of developing your brand, finding these characteristics that are all about you, what describes you. And those characteristics are really supported by your experiences. What kind of experiences can you speak of that really reinforce that? And especially when you're a freshman, you got to get creative in terms of where those experiences are coming from. You got to reach back to high school. You got to take maybe that summer job or that football, baseball, basketball team you were on, or something to really reinforce that. You got to get creative in terms of where you're pulling these experiences from that reinforce the quality traits that you're going to tell people you have.
That's awesome, right? It's that whole authenticity, but also creativity too, right? You want to be authentic in who you are, but then creative in where you're pulling those experiences because that really shapes the narrative, right? The story that you can tell. So
Exactly. And
it's super exciting.
one point to add here is that they this this experience could also be a project that you've worked on. And maybe if you don't have any projects, find a project to start on. Get in an organization so that you can start building experiences as quickly as possible to speak about it in an interview.
Oh yeah, awesome. It's like getting involved right away, right? That's just like a
Mhm.
general freshman tip. It's great. But then second part, right? Second point I wanted to drill into is going to the career fair and connecting with recruiters, right? This is really like the money zone where everybody is there looking to hire you. They may not be looking to hire freshmen specifically, but that doesn't mean you can't go out and talk to them and create relationships. I know at least, at the career fairs that I'm involved in, the same recruiters typically come year after year. So the more you can start creating relationships with them and letting them know you're interested in the company, the better. Back to getting internships as a freshman, though, this goes back to creating your brand. This is where you have your brand established. You know what it is. Now go sell it, right? This is the best time to kind of talk about yourself, why you belong to the company. Use your brand to shape that narrative of why you specifically belong with that company. Matt?
That all sounds really good. I like that term you use. That's the money zone. That's where the opportunity is right in front of you. I mean, let's be honest. Applying online, it's kind of like buying a lottery ticket. You're not going to win.
Yeah, definitely.
Who knows where your application goes? Who knows how it's filtered? So going to a career fair, the opportunity is right in front of you. In front of you, you have
Exactly.
recruiters right there, ready to talk to you and ready to fill positions. So definitely go to the career fair. A lot of advice that's given to freshmen is just go and watch people, observe. But here at Destination Internship, we really believe just diving straight in, getting not even really getting your feet wet, just go all in. Talk
Yeah.
to as many recruiters at that fair as you can. And one last thing to sort of close this out, if you have something to say too, Mike, is before you start talking to companies that you really like, talk to some companies that you are semi interested in, or maybe even not interested in, to get some practice and confidence before you
Mhm.
actually go out and talk to those companies that you like, that you
Yeah.
are really interested in.
Because you always get like the vague question of like talk me through your resume, right? You by testing out with like smaller companies, you can kind of see, what are people, how do I go through my resume? What makes sense? What do people mostly grasp onto? And that gives you
Exactly.
some notice. I think the
Because
big thing is like career fairs is like the internship Super Bowl. You don't want to just like watch the Super Bowl from the sideline if you play football. You want to be involved. You want to get in the game and have an impact right away. And I think the best way to do that is as a freshman, prep for it and take it very seriously.
And just one last point here. You said you learn what works. That's when you talk to these recruiters. That's why I said, talk to some companies that you may or may not be interested in first, because then you understand what points in your elevator pitch, that initial 30-second pitch that you give to the recruiter, what they're most receptive to. Maybe the topic that you think is really stellar doesn't really grab their attention, but something that you didn't think was really stellar grabbed their attention. So then when you find out what really grabs their attention, you start incorporating that into the pitch. And you can then use that later on when you talk to the company that you really want to get in front of and really want to appeal to.
Awesome. Exactly. And again, here at Destination Internship, we think it's very important to establish your brand as a freshman, at least existing brand, right? Totally able to fluctuate as you go throughout college. But, what is your brand at that point as a freshman? And then going to the career fairs and talking to recruiters is your way of selling it. Without practice, how do you know your audience, right? Having that practice beforehand of talking with these recruiters that you may or may not be interested in, that lets you understand the audience, what they value and what they're looking for and what they see of value in your product, AKA, which is your brand and what you can bring to that company. So, a successful salesman knows who he's selling to. That gives you the practice. And that gives you the opportunity to kind of really hone in your message, like Matt said. Last point that we want to dive into is to cast your net wide when you're talking to people at these fairs and in general, right? Applying to jobs in general. Because I know a lot of freshmen are like, oh, like I'm a mechanical engineer, or, I'm a student studying finance. Like I'm applying to those positions. But I think as a freshman, you're kind of an empty slate, right? A blank canvas that you want to cast your net wide to have opportunities for any, number of internships possible.
Exactly. And what you'll see in terms of our advice is when you're older and you have more experiences under your belt, that kind of molds your brand and it gives direction to who you want to talk to in terms of recruiters and companies and the types of roles you're going to be looking for. Of course, if you're interested in something else, you can obviously pivot. But once you have experiences under your belt, it really guides what you're looking for. But when you don't have those experiences under your belt, you're super flexible. You can go any direction. And really just having an experience, I think, is most critical because it sets you up really well for future success. Because once you get that initial internship, first experience, it becomes significantly easier to get the next. So
it's
like
a snowball
Mike said,
effect.
Exactly. So you just have to cast your net out wide because there might be an opportunity in a field that isn't necessarily what you're studying. But if it's an opportunity to learn. It's an opportunity to grow, and it's an opportunity to add an experience to reinforce that brand that Mike was talking about.
Yep. Awesome. Couldn't agree more.
And no experience is beneath you or too irrelevant. If you can get an experience, you should take it. Just jump on it and be grateful for anything that you get because there's always something to learn. And even the most seemingly small experiences.
Yep, really wise words from the 5-time intern. With that, we're gonna kind of close it out. We really hope you enjoyed, and we really hope you find success in your freshman year with looking for internships. Stay tuned for more podcasts, more content coverages. Please like, subscribe, share as always, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much.